Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com, bringing you the final review of Thor's Power Program. Thor's Power Program is a strongman focused program / template created by Sebastian Oreb, the Australian strength coach, who is also the coach for Thor Bjornsson. Bjornsson won the 2018 World's Strongest Man competition, as well as the 2018 and 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic. So this program was actually devised by Oreb for Bjornsson's participation in the 2018 World's Strongest Man competition, which he won. So that's a bit of a background about the program. Now let's talk about what the program actually is. So the program is a 12-week program split up into 3 4-week sections. You're working out around 4 days a week. The idea is 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, so on and so forth, or 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off as the weeks progress if you want to stick to that Monday through Sunday schedule. Alternatively, it is just a 4-day program. You can attack that however you want, where you do 1 main movement followed by 2 to 3 accessory movements for that day. So for example, day 1, week 1 is safety bar squats with some lunges and then some calf raises. And as the phases progress, you start off with a pretty general strength program with moderate reps, going on to a bit more specific where they ramp up some intensity, drop the volume, and increase the weights that they want you to use. And then with the final phase of the program being very strongman specific, with very much the set rep schemes that would help drive performance in a strongman competition, which the program was designed to do. And since Thor did win the 2018 competition, I would say that the program was very successful in achieving that goal. So now we've got the structure out of the way, let's talk about the results that I got when I undertook the program. So I'll start off by saying that I did only do 10 out of the 12 weeks, which I'll address later in the video. The reason for that is part of the program structure and problems I faced completing the program. So we'll address that later on in the video, but for now, the only real way I was able to judge the program was my 1 rep max performance in the squat, the bench, the deadlift, the press. I wasn't really concerned with body composition goals, so I didn't change my diet. I didn't really make any huge nutritional changes. The program also isn't designed to be some sort of body composition transformation style program that a lot of people kind of are looking for. So with that in mind, I wouldn't suggest this program if you're trying to do any sort of body composition goals, lose weight, gain muscle, things like that. It's more for building strength, getting better at strongman lifts, and getting ready for a strongman competition. With all that said, a lot of your body composition changes will come from your diet, so you can do almost any training program that's somewhat sound in its logic and development, and as long as you're eating right and getting those necessary factors in, so calories in, calories out, getting good sleep, you're going to see some changes in your body composition. But again, that wasn't the main point of this program or why I did the program. So it was more of an off-season style of training where I just wanted to play around with some strongman style training. It was a break from my usual powerlifting focused workout training routine, so it was a kind of good 10-week break from that. So here goes my numbers for the squat. We tested them before and after. We hit 455 pounds for 1, and after the 10 weeks it was 445. The bench press was 295 at the start of it. Afterwards we did 305 pounds. The deadlift stayed the same at 485 pounds. The overhead press went from 195 to 205 pounds. So from those minor changes, you can see that my upper body definitely got some good gains out of the program, whereas my lower body kind of suffered a little bit, didn't make as much advances in it. And you could argue that a 10-pound change is really just 10 pounds across each lift, whether up or down. So the 10-pound change wasn't that big of a change in the grand scheme of things, so whether it was that deleterious to my squat is something to be seen, or if it was that beneficial to my bench press and overhead press. Nevertheless, I'll take those as a win for the program and for my own journey along the way. So I think, considering that this program isn't designed to help your one rep max go up. I think that was a great result for me because it was really my only measure of testing it since I don't compete in strongman. So nevertheless, the program was good, the program was fun for the results. So I think results solid. Whether that's true for the program is another thing to be said. So now we're going to move on to the cons of the program. I like to start off with a couple of the negatives with the program, and the first big con for me personally was the amount of material that you actually receive when you do purchase a program. So I did purchase a program when they had a sale on. Normally the program costs around $40. I picked it up for half price at $20. At that $20 price range, I'm not too worried about it. I think $20 is the right price for the program for what you get. Before we continue, I want to say that this is for version 1.0. They currently have a version 2.0, which I'm not familiar with. I haven't purchased it, so I'm not too familiar with what goes into that program. But from what I've read, it does introduce some bit more versatility in the fact that you're able to sub out some movements, and they give you some recommended substitution of exercises there. So it addresses one of the problems that I personally faced along the way. But going back to what you receive, the materials you get from the program, when you do sign up, you get a simple spreadsheet, which is 3 tabs and contains a program. I'll try and throw in a screenshot here with the exercises blocked out so you don't get the full program, because that would not be good for anybody. But you get that, as well as a short written document about Bjornsson and Arab and their background, their training, what their current goals are, as well as exercise movement explanation, a weight calculator, and videos as to how they do the lifts. Now, all of it sounds like a lot, and I was expecting a lot more from it, but the document was more description of their backgrounds. It wasn't too educational in what it was trying to get across, but that might not be the main point of the template. But for me, that wants to learn a bit more about the science of training and programming, and get a bit more of a better understanding as to why they're doing certain things. It was average at best, I think, from that perspective. The biggest problem with the spreadsheet is that it doesn't allow you to track information in the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is more of like a print out, here you go, and work onto it, and then you just manually write in on a separate piece of paper what weights you used. So they have, for example, you're doing 5 sets of 5 reps. I didn't always necessarily hit the same weight for those 5 sets, nor did I hit the prescribed number of reps. So in the spreadsheet, I'm unable to track those metrics. And if any of you have ever played with Excel before, it's really difficult to modify a protected spreadsheet, which it is, which makes sense. But B, if I'm trying to enter 5 lines of code or 5 lines of numbers into one cell, that doesn't really work that well for pulling data out of it or just analyzing it either. So that's one of the big problems with the material that you receive with the spreadsheet. With the program. So not a big fan of that. The next problem that I encountered was exercise selection. So with that being said, because it is a strongman focused program, there's a lot of strongman specific equipment that you do need, which isn't the fault of the program, because that's what you need to do. The problem that I encountered was I didn't have a lot of the basic equipment, such as dumbbells, obviously dumbbells, and then obviously the strongman specific equipment like the yokes, the Atlas stones, the axle bars, things like that you'll need access to if you want to perform the program as prescribed, which I was hoping to do. But that's not necessarily the fault of the program. The problem I encountered was they didn't suggest alternatives to use that would be very similar to the movements. I kind of had to rely on my own training knowledge and history, and a little bit of online research as to figure out what would be the best substitutions. On one of the days with actual deadlifts or the actual rows, I was just wrapping my wrist wraps around a barbell in order to get that thicker grip. And this is where it led to me cutting the program short by 2 weeks. So the last half of the third and final phase of the program is very much a strongman centric focused program. So you're doing yoke walks, you're doing Atlas stones, you're doing you're doing axle deadlifts, axle over the shoulders, log training. None of that I really had access to at all in my little garage gym. So there were days where I was doing nothing as written in the template because of all the equipment substitutions I had to make. So that kind of made me realize that I wasn't really performing the program as prescribed. So what was the point of me finishing the program? So we cut it short. I had a little bit of a rest period, tested out my 1 rep maxes again, and called it a day. I just ended it at a couple weeks short, which I don't think was too big of a problem. You could argue that maybe I would have seen more changes in my strength for those extra 2 weeks, which I probably would have seen, but because I wasn't performing the program as necessary, I don't think it was great for what I was hoping to get out of the program. I guess I could have repeated exercises from the second phase with a set rep schemes from the third phase, and maybe that's something you can do if you do decide to run the program. But I just thought of that now, so a bit too late to put that into the training regime. The other problem that I found was the inflexibility of the weights that prescribed. So they don't really help you address what happens if you miss a weight. Do I continue with that weight for the next week? Do I drop the weight? I found this to be a big problem with the overhead pressing. Yes, I did see a new PR in the overhead press, but along the way I wasn't hitting the numbers that they were prescribing based on their weight calculator. So a bit of an issue there with the weight management. With that being said, they didn't suggest that there was a kind of a lack of direction into that regard of the program. And I think a lot of the big issues that are coming out of the program is that it is a hyper-specific program. It was developed for one person for one goal in mind, and that was for Thor Bjornsson to win the world's strongest man competition, which he did. So the program is very successful in what it aims to do. Is it a general population style template? I would say it is not. I don't think it is suitable for beginners and general pop or anyone that isn't in the strongman world to kind of complete, because it lacks a lot of direction, as well as a lot of programming concepts that would apply a lot better than this was prescribing you to do. So now let's move on to the pros of the program. One of the big pros is obviously for me personally, it was my ability to increase my bench press and overhead press max. Both of them but 10 pounds each. Not huge jumps, but I think pretty significant jumps there, going from 295 to 305 for the bench press, and then 195 to 205 for the overhead press. Two lifts that I've kind of struggled with in the past because I haven't really focused on those, and I think that stems from Aurab's concept for programming principles. He really stresses like a 2 to 3 push to pull ratio. So for every bench press movement you did a form of rowing and a form of horizontal pulling. So either a lat pull down or a chin up. I had to obviously sub out or any lat pull down because I don't have any lat pull down cable machines in the house gym. Also with the dumbbells, I had to sub all that out for barbell rows. So I had a limited exposure of exercises to simply pull-ups, chin-ups, and a barbell row variety, whereas a program had you doing single arm work, cable rows, lat pull downs, a lot of other exercise movements that required a bit more specialty equipment. But nevertheless, I think that heavy focus on the pushing and pulling of the upper body really helped drive up my numbers for the bench and press, and I thought that was a really cool part of the program. Kind of came at the expense of the lower body, but I think when we're looking at the big scheme of things, pushing some and not having all the lifts go up in unison is kind of unrealistic once you hit a certain point. So I think I'm going to take these little wins along the way as I get them. So I think that was a great result out of the program. I think the higher reps that the program does account for, that it's just a lot more volume because it is a strongman based program where strongmen aren't doing just one rep of the squat, bench, and the deadlift. They're actually doing a lot of movement, a lot of work. There's a lot of work capacity that has to be built up. And I think that helped me personally because one of my weaknesses, which are many, is my work capacity. I would be tired even in powerlifting programs where you're doing low reps and high weights, but you're doing that for a longer amount of time, and you can have a lot of rest periods. And I would know that my work capacity was definitely not that great during those time periods. So I think with the template's ability to throw in a lot of volume, throw in a lot of weight, and throw in some work, really helped drive up my ability to endure longer workout sessions and increase my GPP and work capacity, which I think was another good thing that this program brought along. I think it was fun and novel. It's not something I've done before. The concept of not squatting, low bar back squat for a month was interesting for me. I wasn't a fan of it, but hindsight, I think it was a good break that my body needed in order to just change up that movement pattern. And when I came back to the squat, it felt like a new movement, and it felt really good to reattempt the low bar back squat again, not having performed that for a month. So that was one of the good things. It was just good to break up my usual powerlifting style movements, throwing in some lunges, some stuff that I don't normally do with the regular pattern of training. So that fun and novel stimulus kind of helped refresh both physically and mentally for me personally. And finally, wrapping up, I think the last pro of this was I just found it good from an educational entertainment point of view. So I know that I said before the template program material itself wasn't that great, but what they did provide was really interesting and really knowledgeable, mainly because I am a fan of Strongman. So watching Beyonce and Wynn and see what went behind that was really cool for me, just to be able to read what they did, read how they attacked the weights, just see the insane amounts of weights that he lifts was just mind-boggling to read, and then just to obviously see that in the competition was cool, but to just see the background and the mentality behind how they train a world-class performer was just, I think, one of the cool things about getting this program, getting hands onto the program, and just reading a bit more background into both of Orb and Beyonce. So that was another positive of the program. Overall, I would rate the program at a 6.5 out of 10. I think the program is very, very specific, and I wouldn't recommend purchasing it at the $40 mark. If there is a sale where you can get it at a lower mark, at a lower price point, $20, I would recommend it all day long for a lot of people that are more advanced. So if you're a beginner, I wouldn't recommend the program. If you're a powerlifter, CrossFitter, bodybuilder, wouldn't recommend the program. If you're a strongman competitor, I would definitely recommend checking it out, more so when they do run sales and specials. If the 2.0 is better, I would recommend that potentially, but I haven't looked into it too much, and this isn't really a review of that because I didn't run that program. So with that being said, it's not a program for everybody, but it's not meant to be. It was designed to help one of the strongest men win the World's Strongest Man competition, which he did. So again, with that regard, with that hyper specificity of the program was successful at what it aimed to do. And that's something that you should remember with your own training, is that these templates are great. There's a lot of good templates circulating around, available online, but at the end of the day, if it's a template, it's built for the general population. And yes, you're part of the general pop, you're probably average, but at the same time, everyone has their strengths, weaknesses, preferences, and that's one thing you should do when you get any template, is to just think about what your own body is like, how your own training history is, what your strengths are, and tailor the program a little bit to your own needs and wants out of a training program. Something to keep in mind when you are searching around for that. So I hope you found this review useful. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.